Welcome. This is
You don't
Love
know
in the
that?
World of Comics with Cami Garcia and Thom Zahler. And yet, you're right. I don't know that. Maybe they did come to
There
hear
might be a
that.
lot of other people who are like, I don't want to fly either. But like I said, it's fun. Like Columbus is really fun, so it's worth it to fly here.
Well, that's good. At least it's worth the trip. So, what was your guys' first introduction to like comic books in general, and kind of what made you want to go into that? Feel like what made you decide that's what I want to do?
Well, I didn't start in comics, but I
Right.
read comics from the time I was a kid, and it was Wonder Woman.
Okay.
Like when I was a child, I thought that was a job. Like you could grow up to be Wonder Woman, and that is what I wanted to be. I was Wonder Woman for like 4 years in a row for Halloween.
Nice.
And I watched, Wonder Woman with Linda Carter, and I thought, like, okay, that's Wonder Woman, and then she will retire, and someone else will become Wonder Woman. And so,
Makes sense.
like, I wanted to be Wonder Woman. I was very disappointed when I found out that was not really a job. But I read comics. I loved comics. I loved watching like Super Friends and like all the Spider-Man, all the Saturday morning comic shows. And then I wrote novels. I wrote Beautiful Creatures with My Best Friend, which is a YA novel. And I wrote YA for a while. And then DC approached me because they were looking for young adult writers to write full-length graphic novels.
Mm-hmm.
And they knew my work. So they, and I was interested because I liked comics, and DC is my preferred
So you were already a fan, so it wasn't a hard choice.
No, but I mean, what I cared about most was I didn't want to, like, I knew what weeklies were, and I did not want to have to turn in something every week. So
Right.
It sounded terrifying. I have like mad respect for anyone who could like that web. Any time where you are on that kind of a tight regular schedule, I think is like amazing writers who could do that.
I am the real hero. Yes.
Yeah, you're like the real hardcore. But yeah, so and they just basically said we want more people to read comics, and there are all these kids that love manga and stuff, but we can't get them to read our comics and graphic novels, and we don't know why. So we want you to get your readers to read our books. And I was like, that seems fine. Like I know how to do that. I was like, I know what the problem is.
Right. Yeah.
So
If they listen to the fans, they pretty much know what the problem is.
Well,
but-
no, I think the hardest thing was that they just didn't realize that, like, I knew what they're like. I knew growing up, I knew what balloons were. I knew how to navigate a page because I grew up reading comics.
Right.
When you don't, like, I knew that, like, kids, especially in like this kind of tech age, like, they don't want to try to go find like 28 issues of something.
Yeah, that's
Like they don't want to go dig up something. They want to have it all in like one thing. That's why like they love web series. It's like you can go and read the
It's
whole
that
run.
instant gratification.
And so I said, like, I just have to write something where what they need to know about that character is in the book. And then if they love it, we can get them to read more. And then the hope would be if they fall in love with the Titans, then they go read George and, Marv and all the rest of the Titans.
Awesome. And what about-
My parents were very Machiavellian. They taught me to read at 2.5.
oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, my dad read a book that said there's no reason a little kid can't read, so he would do phonics drills with me,
Okay.
but he would only do 2 pages a day, so that I would say, let's do more, Dad. And he's like, no, we'll do more tomorrow.
Oh, smart.
Oh, that's clever.
And
I was
so-
we're not out of time already, are we?
no, my goddaughter is going to meet Charlie Cox right now. So they used his reward program. So like clean my room, got comics. They had a really well-behaved kid. I had a lot of comics. So it's always been there. I have no memory of not wanting to be a cartoonist. It's all I've ever wanted. Well, I wanted to be the guest villain on Buffy the Vampire Slayer at one point. But
That's also a good job.
I want 13 episodes, my own action figure in the cover of Tiger Beat magazine. So it was just always something I wanted to do. And then I went to I had a deal with my mom that if I got good grades, I could go wherever I wanted to school. So I got my Phi Beta Kappa, National Merit Scholar, all that. And I went to the Joe Kubert School, which freaked her out because she wasn't prepared for me to actually do the thing that I said I was going to do. And I went there. She is now my biggest fan. She was worried more that it's like going into the NBA. It's not that there's not a new crop of talent. It's just really hard to be in that crop.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, she's super supportive.
She's probably just worried about you making sure you could, like, have a good, really prosperous future.
Yeah. She wanted me to have something to fall back on. I'm like, no, because then I might use it. I have to only do this. So,
Yeah,
we had
that's a
different
good way
approaches.
to kind of force yourself into your dream.
Yeah.
know? So what's the creative process like with like making comics versus like writing your novels that you were writing before you were
Well,
doing the
writing
graphic
comics
novels?
is way more fun. prose
Okay.
novels. Writing prose novels is like super sloggy. I love coming up with ideas. I love revising. I love writing dialogue, but I don't like writing any other part of the book. Like the first draft and all, like I don't like to get people from place to place, which I
Right.
realized when I started writing graphic novels, I don't have to do because the artist does all that. So I was
Yeah.
like, this is perfect for me.
You just cut
all
out
I
all
have
the
to do is the
transitional
big
stuff.
moments, the
Yeah.
dialogue, the action, the scary parts, and then everything else. The artist just magically makes people get where they need to go in some fun way. I wrote Beautiful Creatures. I was a teacher for 17 years, so I never intended to be a writer. I wrote it on a dare from 7 of my students. So since I started out writing with someone, I actually prefer to collaborate with another person when I'm working. So I also love comics because the artist is like my built-in partner. And I love that, like, you know, when I work with an artist, like, I don't ever write the full script until I know who the artist is, which, like, I'm already,
Okay,
like,
so
I have
you're
a very
tailoring-
nervous editor that hasn't worked with me right now, who's, like, super nervous because I haven't, like, turned in the full script. And, but I really believe that, like, the way that you get magic, if you're not a cartoonist and you're not doing it all yourself, is that, you know, you see what the artist does really well and what they love, and then you write into that. And you give them more of what they love and less of what they hate.
Right.
You know, like no artist of mine, I mean, you might be the rare one. You know, there's no horses in any of my books.
Oh, well, yeah, I hate horses.
There's no horses. Even
is
in
it
like when
about
I did a
horses that
Wonder Woman
artists hate so
short,
much?
I said to Phil Hester, I'm like, you can just have like the swishing tail in the edge, so we like think there's a horse somewhere. You don't have to draw the whole horse. So yeah, I mean, I see it as a collaboration, and people have been great to me in comics, and I just feel like it's a great medium because I'm a very visual person, so I get why kids and young people and adults love comics.
And then for you, is there like a difference in your creative process when you're doing something like Love and Capes versus some of your other work?
Oh, yeah. So when I work on My Little Pony, I'm writing scripts and they have to be approved by Hasbro. So I have to do
okay,
the
yeah,
entire
that-
script for someone. When I'm writing for myself, it is often Post-it notes on the kitchen wall, notes in the shower, because I have shower crayons. When I get ideas in the
Smart.
shower, I can
Oh,
write down.
that's so cool.
And then you can write your shower water bill off, I think. Yeah, but I try to keep a tension between writer Tom and artist Tom. We hate each other. Because anytime I write a crowd scene, it seems like a good idea, and then I have to draw it. But I want to make sure that I'm not drawing only what I want. Like, I want to make sure I'm not giving myself the easy out. I want to make sure that I'm telling the story that needs to be told, because the story is the story, and once I do that, I have to figure out how to tell it. And I think I can draw all the story. I can write all the stories I draw, but I can't draw all the stories I write. So there are stories that I can write that are not for me to draw, and I would find someone else.
That's cool.
But there are other things that anything I draw, I want to write.
It's very cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. So there's like a ton of romances in comic books. Do you guys have a favorite in particular?
Oh my gosh. Comics, there's a lot of favorites. I mean, I'm a huge Lore Olympus fan.
Okay.
I mean, I love Lore Olympus. I'm also I'm a huge Bat Cat fan, which a lot of people were super mad when Tom came to it. But I love Bat Cat. I love Beast Boy and Raven. And I wrote Beast Boy Loves Raven. I did a series pitch for them, and I wrote bonus book Beast Boy Loves Raven, like almost as a joke. So I'm like, they'd never let me do that.
Right.
But I love them together. And I didn't have an outline for that one. I just put like, Beast Boy Loves Raven. And I remember when Raven did really well, and then when they started Beast Boy and they got the pre-orders for Beast Boy, they said to us, like, well, what do you want to do for the next one? And I was thinking, okay, like next we're going to do Robin or whatever, And they were like, and the editor said, what about Beast Boy Loves Raven? And I thought she was joking, because that's like my dream book.
Right.
And Gabriel's too.
And that's all the fans want
Yeah,
those
and I
two
knew as
characters
an
together
artist,
so
like,
bad
he
anyway.
loves drawing them together. So I was like, it was just like both of us a dream. So I was like, and they're like, we just need you to send the outline, because we realize it's not in the pitch. And I'm like, oh, no problem. I'm traveling. I'll send it to you on Monday. So I was like, on Saturday and Sunday, I was like, I'm better make up an outline really fast, because we're doing this book.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And it was really fun. It was great.
Awesome.
One of your favorite romances.
I always love Superman and Lois.
I always want to say
Right.
them too.
Yeah. Charlie Brown and Little Red Haired Girl.
Oh.
Because I like the ones that are like unrequited, and
Yeah.
I think there are comic books that get to move and end, and there are comics that are constant. Like, I like that Charlie Brown never got together with her. I like that he never kicked the football at the end.
Yeah.
Like, because those stories are for someone else. Like, at a certain point, you age out and somebody else comes in. And the one that I keep trying to steal to use in things is Nick and Nora from The Thin Man. Like, I like super bantery couples, which is why, like, I really love the way Tony Isabella wrote Hawkman and Hawkwoman when they were a married couple in Shadow War of the Hawkman. I thought they were great, and I want more of that. I want more happy couples that can have fights, not fighting couples that sometimes can be happy.
No, I love that answer. So how much creative freedom do you guys get with those kind of stories?
I have a lot, but it's only because like I already had a career and they came to me.
Right.
And also because honestly they hired me because they said like we don't know we have tried
They
to do
needed
this
you
and it is not
more,
working.
yeah.
And I had to meet with Dan DiDio and Jim Lee and Hank Canal, like all of the heads, the head of sales, because when I did my pitch, it was these origin stories, and then like eventually we could build a group, and they were like, okay, but can you do the group first? And I said yes, but haven't you already done that like a lot of times? And you're telling me that doesn't work. And I said, and the reason it doesn't work for the kind of readers you're trying to attract is because, like I said, that's why everyone loves the Titans in the animated series, including me. Like, you want to get to know them.
Yeah.
You want to hang out with them. You want to get invested in them before they have to fight the ultimate evil together. And so I said, like, I will do what you want me to do because I can write it either way. But I will guarantee you, like, if I get the right artist, this will sell in Origins. I cannot promise you the reverse. I do not feel confident enough to say that my writing is good enough, but I can get people to read in a way they don't really want to read.
Right.
Like my audience. And I said, so, and then finally Dan was like, okay, fine. Origins it is. Like, and, and I said, because I told them, I said, listen, I will be the first to tell you when I don't know if I can do something well. I said, I know how to do this. I was a teacher. I work with teenagers.
Right.
I know how to do this. But I said, it all hinges on like, you trusting me and also letting, like, I need the right artist. If I do not have an artist that is going to be relatable to teens and appealing to teenagers and doesn't just draw miniature adults, it is not going to work.
Right.
And I had artist approval, but I didn't have the, like, I get to pick.
Right.
So they sent me a bunch of artists and I said, like, these are all incredible people, but these are DCU artists. This is what you're telling me doesn't work.
Right.
And eventually, like, I was on Instagram, but like, Pinterest is like my social media choice. That's like my age group. Like that's what I'm into. And I went on Pinterest and I saw, I was looking at George Perez and I just searched Teen Titans comic book art. And all this art by this kid, and I say kid because Gabriel literally could be my child. Like this very young guy started coming up and they were wearing regular clothes, which was a huge part of my pitch.
Right.
Like they were eating pizza and I was like, this is it. And I showed DC, I'm like, this is what I want. And they were like, okay, that's great, except for that guy's not a comic book artist. He is a artist, regular artist. Mm-hmm. And I was like,
at the end of the day, what's the difference?
And they said, well, we don't know that he knows how to do layouts. We don't know that he knows how to panel. And I said, well, can't someone else do that? And there was like silence. And I was like, is there ever a situation where someone else does that? And they were like, well, yeah, I mean. And I said, well, can I do that? And they were like, no, like, you have not done this either. So they said, we just wanted one person out of like the pair to have done this before. And I said, well, I have this super famous editor who's like really badass and she like edited Akira and like, she knows what she's doing.
Yeah.
And I ended up losing her, which I was like sad and crying. But then I ended up getting another good editor. But I said, like, everybody else knows what they're doing. And they said, we'll give him a shot. And they did. And like he met his deadlines. He had worked professionally. He just hadn't done the comic format. He had done concept art for publishers and things like that. So he knew how to like be a business person and turn in his work. And we worked together. And for the first book, every time there was something wrong, like he wouldn't ask DC anything because he was terrified they were going to fire him. So I would be like, I really don't like the rendering. And they were like, what part of the rendering don't you like? And I was literally like, I'd written down what Gabriel told me to say.
Yeah.
And I was like, I really don't like the rendering. Like, what part of the rendering you don't like? I was like, I don't know, the rendering part is the part I don't like. And eventually they figured out it was me asking Gabriel's questions. And they were just like, Gabriel, we're not going to fire you. Like, you're doing an excellent job. And so now he's like very, comfortable and stuff. But again, like he was 23 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow, yeah.
And that was his dream job.
Yeah.
And
so,
it kind of just got thrust on him, and he's like, "Oh crap! Now it's real."
And it's really real, Like,
yeah, it's walking a tightrope. You don't want to be. You don't want to do the thing that screws it up.
Absolutely.
My freedom's dependent on the project. So I wrote Cheese Sandwich and Pinkie Pie and My Little Pony. I did the stories that got them together to bridge the gap at the end. Hopefully, you've seen the end. And that they're things they wouldn't let me do because it's their characters. With my characters, I can do whatever I want. So when I wrote Warning Label, I could abuse Danielle exactly the way I wanted to for 40 chapters, and nobody argued. My characters I have control over, but it's also I have to find the right people to talk to keep me in check. Because every once in a while I go a little off, but it's finding that internal consistency of, like, I killed a character off in my romance comic. I'm like, but it'll be funny. And they're like, but will it? I'm like, oh, it'll be funny. Don't worry.
Do you have that one person? Like, do you have the one person who's your first reader who tells you when you're doing it wrong?
I have a reader, my goddaughter's father, who has actually argued me down on the ages of the characters in Love and Capes and won. Like, I made these characters. He's like, yes, but this is what you said, and this is the issue that... And I'm like, oh, yeah, you're right. They are that age. I was wrong.
That's
good.
awesome.
You need that person.
Yes.
Do you like playing you like doing My Little Pony too, though? Like playing in someone else's sandbox?
I like figuring out how to tell the story like it's playing with other toys.
Yeah.
And I'm respectful of the fact that you don't get to break anything. You have to put them back where you found them. I like the opportunity to try to expand it or explain things. Like in My Little Pony, Zecora, the zebra, didn't live with the other ponies, and it felt vaguely like exclusionary.
Yeah.
So I came up with reasons why that happened that weren't all about the fact that she was just the only zebra. So it's fun doing that stuff, but it's there until the TV show comes up with a better idea.
Yeah.
Like they can overwrite me.
Oh yeah. I mean, DC can. I mean, they are some things they have said like you can't do that.
Right.
I said I want to do a Joker YA novel, and I turned in this terrifying pitch, and they were like, we are absolutely not publishing this. And that became the backstory of my Joker Harley, which is DC Black Label and Very Dark. They were like, this is terrifying. There's zero chance that this is not what the line is. And I was like, okay, well, and I thought it was very tame, personally.
I wrote a line in My Little Pony in the script where the main six alternate evil, and Nightmare Moon is throwing energy bolts at Pinkie Pie, and Pinkie Pie says, miss me, now you gotta kiss me. Oh, that would start a whole new fandom. And the note I got back from Hasbro was, this is a great line. We can't believe that Thom wrote it. Please remove
it. Like, funny, we like it, but we can't use it.
And I will say that is why I mean, I have not been offered DCU, but that is why I write for the two lines that do not have to stay in the continuity.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Because, I mean, and they know this about me, because that was the one thing I warned them about, like, when I came in. I was like, it's going to be very diverse. There's going to be queer characters. There's going to be I'm invisibly disabled. There's going to be visibly disabled characters. I was like, if you're not on board for that, like, I'm not doing it. Like, you need to pick someone else. Because I said, like, I want, to me, one of the things that is so amazing about like comics and picture books is the fact that I feel like kids relate to them on such a different level because of the visuals. Yeah. And I said, like, I am not creating a visual medium where all kids kids can't see themselves in the characters. That is not happening. And they were very supportive. They're like, no, absolutely, that's totally fine. And I have taken it when Starfire comes out. Their readers kept asking me, like, when's Starfire? And there was a reason that I wanted to do Robin first. And it was because I wanted to do Starfire a certain way, and I knew I would have to have enough sales numbers to do it.
Oh,
so I waited.
Okay.
And I was able to. And it's really important. Like, I feel like it's really important, and she's still Starfire, but I wanted to, like, add something that I thought was really important. Because like I said, I do feel like comics are like a place where, when you're like a person who's on the outside, or you like different things, and you're not just like everybody else, like, that's the medium for you. So I want all the people to be able to, like, find somebody who's like them, on some level. And I'm doing an original now for first, second, to a middle grade, which is crazy because it's like middle grade, and it's like I don't know how you do the ponies. Like, middle grade is so much harder than teen. and I'm really proud of it. I love the book, but there is a scare level on that I don't have when I do Titans. Because on some part of me knows, like, well, Marv Wolfman and, George Perez were geniuses. They created these characters, the core of who these characters are, and they're amazing. So, like, as long as I keep true to the core of who these characters are, I also have amazing characters. Like, me as a writer can't mess it up. Whereas when I create things from scratch, I am much less confident. Mm-hmm. I am like, oh no, like, what if everyone hates this idea? What if everybody hates this? Is that a Love and Capes thing too? Or
with Love and Capes, I did for myself, but when I did Warning Label and Cupid's Arrows for Webtoon, that was a lot more. I did so much before I had any reader reaction that I wasn't sure how it was going to go.
Yeah.
And I was shooting at a different audience in a different way. I wasn't positive how it was going to work.
Yeah. And it's like, that's the same thing. It's like, I'm done the whole graphic novel by the time they read it. So if I mess up, it's too late.
Yeah.
Like.
I can't fix it.
No, I can't go back. But I really like writing for DC. I'm very jealous. I know a lot about the ponies. My daughter's a huge pony fan. So.
Well, I'm jealous you're writing for DC.
Well, yeah, I'm telling you. My Little Pony is like, I've been to BronyCon twice.
I never got to BronyCon. I got to My Little Pony convention in Germany this year. That brought me out.
Oh, wow.
So I was in Germany for Oktoberfest.
That's pretty cool.
Oh, that must have been fun.
It was.
So how do you guys go about crafting like a unique and original love story when there's so many already in comics?
There's so many different kinds of love stories. And one thing that I think is important, and this is just because the age group I write for primarily, is like, not all love stories are romantic.
Right.
Like, I believe one of the greatest love stories in the series is Raven and Max. Raven and her foster sister. Like, their friendship to me is a great love story. Because there are so many kinds of love, and not all love is romantic. And like, the moment like where you meet the best friend, you've only hung out for like an hour, and you're like, this is my person. Mm-hmm. Like, I want to spend every second with this person and know everything about them and go everywhere with them for the rest of my life. They're like my bestie. Like, I feel like that is a kind of love too. So I like to have different relationships. Gabriel's ace, but he wasn't out at the time we did Beast Boy Loves Raven. And one of the things I was really intentional about when I wrote it was it's very romantic, but they only kiss a couple times in the whole series.
Right. It's
the
not
romance,
like
the intimacy that they have is not super physical.
Right.
It's about like sharing their fears and like opening up to each other, and that, the emotional romance, not just like a physicality. Mm-hmm. And so that was important to me because even though like I'm not queer and I don't innately understand all that, I have, people in my family who are. I have Gabriel, I have people explaining to me like, this is how I feel. This is how it feels for me when I have a romance. So like, I don't want everything to just be the same note. I want there to be like nuance so that it feels like people are able to watch different relationships evolve, if that makes sense.
I tend to date, it goes badly, and then I write about it. Yeah.
That's why it's so funny, right?
Yeah. Funny, that's the word, yeah. Yeah, I like figuring out why things happen and what the core of the story is, and then building it out. Like when I wrote Long Distance, I'd been in long distance relationships, but one of the things that changed from the relationship which put me on the path was that texting and FaceTime, and now you have constant telepresence. Like, you don't have to worry about long distance phone calls and are they going to be home. Like, you can text with people, and there are people that, I don't see regularly, but I'm in their world all the time and they're in mine, and we don't live in the same time zone. And I really wanted to explore that. And I thought it was interesting to build that out and figure out like how that happens in a modern world and how that affects a relationship. Those kind of, like, I try to find a different aspect about the thing that I'm talking about each time. There's always a different challenge.
Because it's a different one of your relationships. Right?
That's right. Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
So do you guys ever worry about like fan response to something you're writing or drawing?
Do you
worry about like them getting
I worry
upset
about my
or
stuff.
something?
Like, I just worry like, will people like this? But with DC, the main thing I cared about was I don't like it when people reinvent things and they just like eradicate them and wreck them.
Right.
So like, one of the things I said to them is I only want to do characters I like. because that is like my way that I know I can do it right. Because if I'm a fan, I won't do a thing that I would be mad at. So then they were like, maybe Beast Boy doesn't need to turn green ever. And I was like, that's ridiculous. I was like, that's absurd. And they were like, maybe he doesn't have to physically turn into animals. It could be like in his mom. I was like, that is also absurd and not happening. Like, so I try to think about like what would make me mad as a fan to lose. Like, it was very tricky because one of the things about Titans is like I wanted them to seem like they could be in like your class and you wouldn't know. So like Raven cannot have a jewel on her head all the time. So she wears it around her neck as a necklace, and there's a reason why. And they were like, well, maybe Trigon doesn't need to really actually be like a demon. Like, he could just be a man. I'm like, again, stupid idea. Not doing that.
They were trying to make it more like regular people than you were trying to make it.
Because I said, like, I can make something relatable, like you said, without breaking the toys.
Yeah.
Like, I don't need to do all that. Like, because they kept thinking, like, is it going to be relatable enough? And I was like, it will, because the fact that we have all these pages to like see them do regular things and have friendships and hang out and, you know, play video games, like that is the stuff that people are looking for. The who do they hang out with? What kind of clothes do they wear? You know, Beast Boy is vegan, you know, like what's in his fridge? Like that's the things people are looking for. They're not looking for Beast Boy doesn't change into an animal. You know, and I'm like, and also if you've seen Gabriel's art, the idea of not letting Gabriel draw animals is also
100%, 100%.
Like there are so many animals. All I do is look for opportunities to put animals in the book. And one of the most popular original characters is in Beast Boy. There's a monkey named Kong, and that's Beast Boy names him. And Kong is a like small little monkey that Beast Boy kind of adopts as a pet, and he is now like everyone was like the salespeople were like, Kong's going to come back to the next book, right? And I was like, yes, he will. I mean, like, but that was my cheat was like, how can I get more animals on the page? So it was like, he needs to have like an animal that will hang out with him. So that was my solution was like, he loves King Kong. He's going to find this monkey and then he names him Kong and they do everything together.
That's awesome.
But secretly it was really just a cheat because I wanted to see Gabriel draw like the monkey all the time.
Well, and now you got a free idea for a plushie, you know.
Well, and you'll see, like there's a shelter, an animal shelter, like every opportunity I can get an animal in there, like I do. But that is again like me knowing also as a fan of his work, like what I bet his fans also love, and like I just want to see more of that. That's the fun of comics.
Yeah.
Yeah. I worry about the patience of my readers more than anything else because I know what the story is and I know how it's going to pay off, but I want to make sure that I don't get them upset for so long that they don't stick with it. So like a broken character's up and I'm like, I know they're getting back together. I just worry that you're going to stick around to see how that happens. Those are the kind of things that I've had to deal with audience. My favorite part is when they're upset and when they cry. I get so many people who tell me they cry.
Me too.
And their tears are so sweet. They keep me young.
Okay, well, on that note, is there a favorite fan interaction you guys have from a convention?
I had, and I'm not there. There are two. One, because I've been lucky enough to work on My Little Pony. I've told this story a bunch of times before. This one kid comes up to me to talk at a convention in Calgary, and he starts talking about My Little Pony too much. I'm used to some of this, but he keeps going, and it's getting to the point where I'm about to go, thanks for coming, time for you to go, that kind of thing. And I don't, and I power through it, but I can tell this woman's watching me from across the hall. And the woman comes up and she says, I'm that boy's mother, he's autistic, and which didn't surprise me. He's nonverbal. Like he literally does not speak.
Wow.
And I just watch him talk to you for half an hour. And I'm so glad that I get to be part of that.
I was thinking, because my younger brother's autistic and he's actually a big My Little Pony fan as well. So
I've heard lots of theories about how the ponies are so simple that the things that confuse autistic people about I'm going to go blank on
like
words.
Facial expressions.
Yeah, all the complexities are gone in the My Little Pony characters.
Oh, wow.
So that's why they can relate to him at that level.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
Right, all those like the subtext.
Yeah.
It's all like very like
it's all
clear.
direct, yeah.
Oh, wow.
And then
That's crazy. Wow.
That's an amazing story though.
Yeah, thank you. And then I had a lady come up to me at a show and tell me that Warning Label made her a better person and that she understood relationships better, and we were both crying by the end of it. So I don't take that stuff for granted. That's that's the best part of what I get to do.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's kind of the same thing. Like I just have a lot of people. My favorite is always when they come up and the parent like comes up and says like, my kid hates reading. Like these are the books that have made them love reading. Because I have a daughter who's dyslexic and does not like to read. And I have a brother who's dyslexic and my husband's dyslexic. So, and my husband's a huge reader, but he only reads comics.
Right.
One of my goals was because I've written dozens and dozens of books, dozens of short stories. My daughter's never read anything I've written. So one of my hopes with Raven was like that she would want to read it, which happened.
That's awesome.
But it was the first thing that I ever wrote that she was even moderately interested in. So like
it wasn't so much work.
Right. And I wrote them in a way that I wanted them to be really accessible to readers of all different ages, but I also didn't want to like dumb down a story so that if the adult fans are reading them, they're like, this is like for 8-year-olds. Like this is not for me. Because you can tell a great story that is aimed at teens that is still appropriate for all ages and fun to read for everybody. I mean, like it's like you know, you want to do the Pixar movie version of the comic where it's like everybody loves it. That is always really meaningful to me when somebody comes up and tells me, or a kid even's like, this is why I started reading. This is the book that got me into comics. Because then I'm like, okay, I like did the thing. I also have had a lot of, as many queer kids that have had reach out to me. I had a lot about Beautiful Creatures. I've had a lot of disabled kids reach out to me with Titans.
Really?
Because even from the first book, like, there are people in the halls in wheelchairs with seeing eye dogs. In Beast Boy, he's not a big character, but like the captain of, like the best person in dodgeball is a boy who is an amputee. So I've had a lot of amputees reach out to me about like, do you have an amputee in your family? I've never seen an amputees on the page before. And that is really meaningful to me because just again, like anytime I have somebody who wasn't feeling seen feel seen, it's to me like really rewarding because I mean I don't like what I said, like I don't know what that's like. I've been able to open picture books from a time I was a kid and have someone who looked like me in the book.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine, I've taught kids who haven't.
Mm-hmm.
And I know how devastating it was and how hard, you have to look for stuff like where you could make sure that they were represented. So when somebody who didn't feel like they were ever seen, feels seen by one of my books, that is really powerful. And that's really what was happening with that autistic interaction. Mm-hmm. He felt seen by you and you became like a safe place. And that's like incredible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. So we got about, 10, 15 minutes left. If we can open it up to audience questions, if you guys have any questions.
You don't have to like get up in the middle or anything.
No, you can just hang out. This is nice chill.
We're all friends here. Anyone have any questions? It's like your big chance about anything.
Oh, so you can stand up, you can sit down, it's whatever you want to do.
Okay, cool.
I teach autistic disorders, and one of the kids in my class, he loves doing like my little role plays all day long. So when he said that about especially nonverbal, like that's amazing. Most of my kids are nonverbal, and so like you can see like bits and pieces of like the movie popping up, but the fact that he like actually talk to you, it's like
Wow.
Yeah, it was amazing.
and also it's kind of on topic, but Beautiful Creatures. I love those books when I was in middle school. I carried them around everywhere. I could not put them down. I just wondered, as far as like being like a visual person, like how did you feel about like AUV? Like was it like?
So always people ask me, did we have a control of the movie? We did not have a say in the movie. We did get to come to the set and hang out, but the screenwriter was not interested in our help, which was unfortunate. But the people who did listen to us were the people who did the sets and the costumes. And and they asked me for photos. So I sent them 450 reference photos of South Carolina and houses and like what the world looked like to me and Margie. And they used them. Like the Luna Libre, there's a magical library in my Beautiful Creatures series. Literally a magical library. And it's just on the page. Like there's no real Luna Libre anywhere. But they created that room and it looked exactly the way we imagined it. And we got to like stand in it. And that was the weirdest thing that I've ever experienced. Because that was right out of our imagination. And it was like, we were just standing there. So the one thing I will say to readers who like love the books and we're disappointed by the movie is like, it is a way to see the world. Because when, like, Ethan's bedroom, every book on the shelf we mention him liking in the series is on that bookshelf. So, like, the sets and stuff are really accurate. The screenplay was just, like, a hot mess.
I always wondered about that because I watched it. I was like, it was nothing like the book.
But Alcon, who was not responsible for the screenplay, but was a production company, still has the rights to it. And we are hoping they really tried to persuade the screenwriter to, like, you know, be a little more inclusive. We're hoping that person would never be attached again. We're hoping that maybe one day they'll do it again as like a show or a mini series or something, because they're very inclusive. So then we feel like we would get to help. And then, you know, it would turn out better. And also, to be fair, it also is a hard thing to adapt into 2 hours. It's very long. So I think it's kind of better suited to, you know, back then there wasn't like streaming wasn't really a thing.
Netflix series.
Yeah, like now there's so many ways to do that. So, I mean, I hope so. But, you know, at the end of the day, it's also a good way for people to find the book.
Anybody else have any questions?
Do you, when you're writing something that in sequential, you know, visually sequential form, do you find you struggle with that point of in a romantic relationship where you're having that moment where it really has to hit, where it has to be that you have to turn somebody's heart? Do you find that that takes more than other types of interactions?
Sometimes I know what it, like you were saying, I know what it is before I get there. So for me, what's tricky is like making sure I have like earned it by the time I get to it. So making sure like they've had enough like interactions and conversations or whatever moments that the reader can see the relationship building. So my thing is more like, oh, did I, you know, did they talk enough? Is it obvious to the reader that they like each other? Like I have to go back through that more. Because I generally know what that moment's going to look like in my head and maybe even sometimes what they're going to say. So it's like getting to there is the tricky part for me because I do feel like, you know, it doesn't pay off like if I don't feel like I earned it. And then the reader's just like, this came out of nowhere. And then they're all mad at me and, you know, so and in a prose novel, you have so many pages to do that. And in a comic, you know, you don't. It's economical. Like you have to do it by whatever that point is. It's going to happen 60%, 50%, whatever it is in your story. But I think the most important thing is always just like to have the heart, like, you know, like make sure it's a moment those characters would really do. Because what is romantic to your characters might not be what is romantic to like mainstream. So I'm always like, what would Beast Boy and Raven, like a romance moment between them be like? Not what like Nicholas Sparks writes. You know what I mean? Because it's got to work for your people.
Got to be the individual. Yeah. Visually, I'll say I hate drawing characters kissing because one of their faces is obscured. So when you're trying to do a big moment, one of the two isn't part of it because you can't see their face. You can't spin around the way that you can in a movie. So that's hard to work with. And when I get to one of those big moments, I'm trying to use every tool I have to make sure that it's working. Like visually, I'm going to make this panel a little bigger. I'm trying to make sure the body language is where I want it to be and the body language is right for the characters. This is going to sound stupid, but if when I'm doing it, I hear music, I know it's right. There's a scene in Love and Capes in issue 12 when Abby kisses Mark when she thinks he's going to die and he doesn't know anything about this. And I can hear the Lifehouse song that's supposed to be playing when that happens. And that's one of those few places where I drew something like, yes, that's exactly the way it should look. Now, when I look at it now, 10 years ago, Tom didn't know how to draw at all. I don't know what he was thinking. But when I did in the moment, it was exactly what I was trying to do.
That's awesome.
Any other questions? No?
Anything.
Yeah.
I have one more. Your goal, Kenny, your goal was to get people to YA to read the comic, get an audience, and then hopefully, like the hopeful was they would read other comics. Have you encountered that happening?
I mean, a lot of them have told me they're reading. They're not necessarily reading Titans, but they're reading because I think that the hard thing about Titans is a lot of them don't like the more recent stuff, and then the George and Marv stuff feels really old to them, which to me is still the best story. I mean, like Marv is the best, And I'm always telling them, like, I know it looks a little old, but like if you just give it a try, you know, like I think you'll still like the arcs of the stories. But I have heard a lot of like, now I'm reading all these graphic novels. Now I started going to my comic store. And like, but it's interesting because they're not always reading what I think they will. I also read this as an inspiration, so this never surprised me. A lot of them are like, oh, I'm reading Gotham Academy, which I love Gotham Academy. So like, I'm like, doesn't surprise me. Mm-hmm. And they don't know it, but our layout artist did backgrounds on Gotham Academy for years. So our layouts are very like, they have that like spirit kind of Gotham Academy that I love. A lot of them also are they'll read everything in the line. And, you know, a lot of them will come up to me and say, like, okay, I've read all these, like, now what? And I'll be like, okay, well, like, have you read Miles Morales? Have you tried Spider-Verse? You know, like, so I'm trying to find for them things that kind of have the same tone. And saying to them, like, go to this. Because I also feel like, you know, once you get Spider-Verse, you'll read Gwen, you know, like, you know, I'll be like, if you read Scott Pilgrim, like, so part of the thing is, like, I try to give them some read-alikes to be like, you could try this. Because I also feel like obviously floppies, paper comics is like the hardest sell because that's like you got to follow the run. So that's why I feel like if I get them into Gwen or I get them into something that's like, you know, Sweeney Boo's Harley run, you know, with Teeny, like something like that has a like the same kind of vibe, then I feel like I can kind of get them more hooked. What I wish secretly is that I could do a run of Titans in DCU, which is not something I've ever brought up. I've never said this, but like I almost wish I could do that where I could like transition them over. You know what I mean? Like I could like slide them in. So, and I don't know that I'll ever do that, but I mean, that's kind of like what I would hope I would do one day is that kind of thing. Because I tell them like, there is something different about reading weeklies and monthlies than reading a collected. You know, and it is more like watching kind of like, I think of it as like watching a TV series, you know, where you only get to watch it once a week.
And it's when you have when you have a team that's writing it like a monthly comic, because so many are written as graphic novels that are just chopped up.
Yeah, which isn't the same. Yeah. And I found that because I write Joker Harley, which is, you know, was bi-monthly, and I'm doing the sequel right now, which will be monthly, and it's totally different. It is like writing a TV show. Mm-hmm. It's like each, you know, book is like an episode. And I tell them, like, the one thing that's really nice about that as a reader is, like, you really digest it. Like, if you love it, you read it 5 or 6 times, you know? Like, you really think about every page, I think, at a more than you do if you get to, like, suck it all up at once.
Yeah, and you've got that binge. I was just talking to somebody at my table about Babylon 5, which is a show I loved, and I can't recommend enough. But part of watching the show was the pain of waiting for the next episode. Yeah. And you had a week to think about it, or in the case of P10, a year and a half when they decided to cut the season.
I felt that about Buffy, too.
Yeah.
Like, part of it was the waiting.
Yeah, and then you could really think about what did that mean? What is this going to pay off? Like, you could build out entire things that when you binge it, it's kind of all spoon-fed to you, and it doesn't become part of you the same way.
And I also liked it because, like, I feel like that's how things like fanfic were born, too. You know, like the waiting, the like, wait, I think the scene should have gone a different way. Like, I wanted to go this way. But, like, if you get to digest the whole thing at once, like I read Lore Olympus on Webtoons. And then I bought the regular collected book. And I don't know why. I just did not feel the same way about the collected book. Mm-hmm. Because I do feel like even if I know there's 20 issues that I can read, like 20 episodes, I still feel like it is, like, exciting to, like, open them up and be like, this is a new one. How many do I have left? I'm not going to read them all right now because then I won't have another one for 2 weeks. Like, you know, like parsing them out.
Yeah. I wondered what the Clone Wars were for about 15 years because they didn't exist. And, like, it just gets it, you start building that out and you just start trying to figure out what it was.
And then I really, this is less interesting because this has to do with my, like, thesis as a teacher, but, like, there is a whole theory about the fact that when a reader, that no book can be read the same way because you as a reader interact with every story, and you even can't even read the same book the same way twice because every time, like, you are bringing yourself into it. So, like, books are almost in a way like an interactive medium because you bring things to the book that, like, you know, he doesn't bring and I won't bring. So I feel like books are in a weird way. They always say, like, book is a living thing, and I feel like that's what they mean, you know, and that's why, like, if you're reading it 10 times, you're going to experience it slightly differently than if you only read it once. So, like, I do, like I said, I enjoy the fact that there are both versions. Now, like Joker is now only going to be 4 and they're going to be longer because I actually, as a reader, was like, I think this is better read in a shorter number of issues. I don't think it's like drawing it out makes you forget the details that you need in true crime.
Yeah.
You know, so I think it's all about like, what is the story
Yeah,
I'm
and-
telling and what's the best way to do it?
Yeah. When I did Long Distance, one of the things my editor came up with was every issue was double-sized because I couldn't come up with enough like cliffhanger ending beats for their relationship. I could do 3, but I couldn't do 8.
Right.
Because it was artificial breaks. And the first relationship, their first scene takes so much from when they meet in the airport to when they talk to when they get back together that you couldn't do that in one issue. One traditional sized issue.
Right. But that's cool. And that's what I think is fun about all these new kind of like formats and stuff.
Yeah.
You can like do things differently. I'm telling you, I want to do like a webtoons thing one day. Like I've gotten really into them now that I read them a lot.
They were a lot of fun.
I like the episodes and I like the vertical scroll.
Vertical scroll's really good for romance comics. You lose vistas. Like it's hard to do action, but
Okay.
you can. And like when the pandemic hit, I was writing Cupid's Arrows, which is about this 2-person hitman team of Cupids that got couples together. And I said, look, the pandemic's not happening in the book because I can't put 6 feet of space in between these characters on a phone.
Yeah,
like it's just not going to
100%.
happen. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it makes sense, 100%. So where can everybody find you guys out on the floor, and where can they find you guys online?
I'm in row 15. I forget what the table number is, but I'm on an end, so I'm easy to see. With Gabriel's giant art behind me, so I'm easy to find. And I am, except on TikTok, which I don't post anything. I just lurk on there to watch stuff. I am my name everywhere else. My website's Cami Garcia, Instagram, Twitter, Pinterest, everything else is just my name. Someone had stolen my name on TikTok.
Oh,
So now I'm Cami Garcia, author on TikTok, but I literally post nothing. Because my daughter was like, please do not put up a bunch of foolish TikToks of you dancing and stuff. No one wants to see that. She's in 11th grade. She's like so cruel. She's like, no one wants to see that, Mom. So I'm like,
you can tell her there's a lot more on TikTok than just people dancing.
well, she thinks that old people my age, that's all they do, is we do like bad
Gotcha.
dances and stuff because we don't really understand TikTok. So she's like, no one wants to see you cook weird stuff and dance and stuff like that. I was like, yeah, I would
You'd be
never,
surprised, first of all.
First of all, I would never videotape myself dancing and put it anywhere, even though I am a good dancer. That is a horrifying thought. But I do like to go on there.
I'm about 2 rows over. I don't know the number, but there are poles in it, so it distinguishes it from the other rows.
Okay.
I'm next to Dan Parent, who does all the Archie stuff. So if you see a bunch of Archie stuff,
Dan's great.
next to him. And I'm Thom Zahler, THOMZAHLER on all the socials, and Tom Z online.
Yeah, go check them out, guys. Thank you guys for coming and hanging out.
Thank you.
Thank you.